Hello, everyone, and welcome. It's great to have you with us. As many of you know, we put forth a tremendous amount of efforts in our broadcast to address workplace culture and how to maximize human potential, to be specific. Joining us today are two notable experts in this field, Adrian Gostick and Chester Elton, authors of the epic bestsellers, and I just shared the story with them on how a young man from Yale a couple of years ago sent me the book called The Carrot Principle. And their second book is All In. Today, the Adrian and Chester are here to talk about an extension of that, and I think will help each one of us understand, maybe for the first time, what motivates us. So, gentlemen, great to be with you.
Well, thanks, Mo. Great to be on the show.
And the great
absolutely. Thanks for the call.
We're not going to say who's who. The test afterwards. You know, people will win $1 million if they can identify who the right person is. So here's the deal, right? The message, follow your passion or your heart, whatever you want to call it, is really taking center stage, especially with this generation over this past decade. So here's something that has always puzzled me. Why do so few of us follow that advice? And I asked this question first because I mentioned to you guys I was sharing your concept with a group of people the other day, and they looked at me and said, if it were so easy, why don't we learn this in school, and why don't we all just follow that path? So I thought that might be interesting to lead our conversation.
You know, I think one of the first things is that we are often led by, whether it's a high school counselor or our parents, and you know the generation before has a understandably limited idea of what sort of positions are out there. We worry about the stability of our kids. My son's a freshman in college right now, and if he comes to me with ideas, I worry about, are you going to pursue something you're passionate about? But then again, are you going to get a job after you're done? And so there's the practicalities that lead us into what we do. And we also have a tendency to chase what we're good at, our strengths. But sometimes our strengths can be very limiting to us. We may be really good at details, or we're really good at math, so we end up becoming an accountant or an engineer. And yet we find the subject's really a slog for us. But we end up doing it because we're good at it. That doesn't mean we love it, which led us to the idea about motivation. What is it that drives us? Because if you can combine this idea of drive and motivation with your strengths, then you could have a great career that's really fulfilling to you.
The other, I'm not going to mention the name. A, would you like to add to that?
Well, yeah, this is actually C. That'll be your clue. But no, the idea there is as we pursued this topic, is we love the personality profiles and we love the strength finders and those kind of assessments. But what fascinated us about motivation was that unlike a personality profile or strength finders, and again, I think they're very valuable, is motivation is different because motivation changes. So it's really interesting as you say, well, I'm going to pursue my passions. Your passions and your motivations change. I mean, what motivated you when you were in college or at the beginning of your career could be very, very different than what motivates you in the middle of your career or the end of your career. And there are a lot of factors around that, So what really fascinated us about this work and why we really dug into the data and developed a tool that could really define is that as our motivations change, if we're not attuned to that, then we're going to miss the chance to be great leaders. We're going to miss the chance to get the right people in the right places. If we understand what our motivators are right now, we'll be better leaders. If we understand the motivations of our people, what they are right now, we're going to be better able to lead. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So here's a question to you. Do we just misinterpret the definition of success? You talk about your son who's a freshman in college. I have a son who's a freshman in college as well. Do we just misinterpret that definition of success, and that's what sometimes leads us in the wrong path?
I shouldn't just say, oh, absolutely, because that's a broad brush stroke. But I think what most of us feel like is success is climbing the corporate ladder. And we've said, okay, that is what success is. But as we've now interviewed more than 850,000 people for our books, and qualitatively we've interviewed thousands of people. And what we find is that the definition of success is different for so many people. We identified 23 different motivators for this book. And we thought we would start with something simple. There'd be 3 motivators or 5 motivators. And we found that was just ridiculous, because the definition of success for me is different than you. Some people are motivated by money. Some people are motivated by creativity or learning or having a chance to make a big impact. There's so many different variables that go into what success looks like, and yet we all tend to clump it into this. You climb the corporate ladder, you make more money, you get the nice home in the suburbs, and then you're successful. And we reach mid-career and we go, why am I not happy?
Absolutely. I mean, we're going to recommend that each person listening take the assessment. Certainly when they get the book, they'll have an opportunity to take the assessment. That's going to open their eyes. However, tell me the starting point that starts to give me clues as to whether or not I'm heading in the right direction professionally.
You know, that's a great question. And again, you know, we come back to the fact that we're all so unique. You know, Adrian mentioned that there are 23 different motivators. It's not 3 or 4. It's not that simple. In fact, when you look at those 23 motivators, the odds of you having the same motivators in the same order as someone else, it's like 1 in 150,000 or something. Do you know what I mean? So are you on the right track? I think the answer to that question is it depends. Where are you on your track? So do you really understand what motivates you, what is going to put a passion in you to excel at what you do? And again, it changes. For example, and I'll give you a personal example. So with these 23 motivators, they do kind of clump together, right? They're kind of sisters and so on. So you take those 23 motivators and you put them into 5 what we call identities. And in alphabetical order, you know, they're achievers, builders, caregivers, reward-driven, and thinkers. Okay, and the titles are pretty self-explanatory. You know, you think of a caregiver, that's pretty much where the motivators, clump together. Well, I was talking to a good friend of mine, Mike, that we've been friends for, well over 30 years. But we haven't, lived close to each other for a long time, even though we stay in touch, a couple times a month, whatever. So I was explaining this whole process to him, the 23 motivators, the 5 identities, and I said, Mike, you've known me pretty long. What do you think my top 2 identities are? And he said, you know what, this is a no-brainer for me. You are absolutely an achiever, reward-driven lunatic, right? I mean, your books are bestsellers, you speak all over the world, you're driven, everything's the best, and, so on and so on. And I said, Mike, you'll be surprised. 3.5 years ago, when Adrian and I started our own company, right? And we started to put out our own work, and that was absolutely the case. There's no question. We were motivated by achievement, by money, by accolades, and so on, because we were building a new business from scratch. But since then, we've had a lot of success, right? Our books have done very well. Our training and consulting is doing very well. And my kids have left. I have 4 kids. My youngest is off to college, right? He's doing his thing. And now we're involved with more charitable work. We're working with inner city kids. We've brought some kids into our home to help them get on the right track. And so 3.5 years later, my identities have completely flipped. I'm a dominant caregiver. I'm not a dominant award-driven or achiever. So you can say, am I on the right path? I think it depends where you are on that path. And that's why we think this assessment tool is so valuable.
Well, I'm a builder, and for me, when I took it, it was pretty clear for me, and certainly it's a great point that you bring up that it's at what stage in your life. But for me, the reason why I do what I do is because nothing matters to me more than the contributing to the success and well-being of others. And that's when I learned I need to be doing more of this. I thought it might be interesting for you guys to just go through the 5 identities and just give people a glimpse of what each one of them does.
Okay, I'll start. I'll start with achievers, and then Mr. Mystery Guy will do the next 2, and then I'll do the last 2. Achievers is interesting. These are people driven by challenge and excelling, ownership, pressure, problem solving. Now, there's another identity called the reward-driven. A way I think about differentiating the 2 of these is an achiever will run a marathon or a 5K on the weekend just to participate, just to have fun and get out there and challenge themselves. My second identity is reward-driven. I wouldn't run a 5K if I didn't think I could at least win my age category, because I am very reward-driven. I just don't want to get out there and compete. I want to win. So I'm reward driven. An achiever just wants to compete and excel and do quite well like that. You think of the movie Rudy. Why did Rudy want to be on the football team? He wanted to challenge himself. He wanted to put himself out against Notre Dame, the best team out there. He just wanted to achieve. So there are people out there who just love to achieve. They may not be driven by money or prestige or things like that, but they love to accomplish things. So industry guy.
The C guy.
Yeah, on the builders. But as you hear Adrian explain that, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? You talk about, am I on the right track? What's my definition of success? 10 years ago, Adrian would have said, I wouldn't run the 5K if I couldn't win it. You notice now he says, if I couldn't at least win my age category.
Oh, exactly. I have no hope of winning. Yeah, 49.
So the definition of success does change with age, no question. Well, the next one, and we go in alphabetical order, right, is yours, Mo. It's the builders. These are people that really are purpose-driven, and like you say, their biggest satisfaction comes out of developing others. Friendship, is very high with them. Purpose, service, social responsibility, teamwork. They typically think it's important to speak out on significant issues. They're very social, responsibility driven, and they really do revel in the success of others. And it's interesting, I know you're a big sports fan, NFL in particular, and isn't it interesting as you look at different big-time coaches, we'll often say, well, talk to me about his coaching tree. Mm-hmm. Like what coaches coached for him that went on to be great coaches? And as other teams look to hire coaches, they look say, well, who did you coach with? And how much success did you have? And so on. That's very much the builder mentality, and it makes sense, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
And then what we find is builders make great leaders. It doesn't mean that other identities can't be leaders, but we definitely encourage leaders to develop their builder sides.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about the servant leader, right? Service is a big part there. They feel really good about serving others, developing others. So that's the builder. The next one is really interesting. And in this category of the 23 motivators, there are only 3: empathy, family, and fun. Now, it's funny because as we went through this, we said, well, with only 3 motivators, then, what are the chances of anybody being a caregiver? You know what I mean? Other categories have 6 or 7 motivators, but the test is weighted, and so when we talk about family, fun, and empathy, they have more weight on those than other categories. In fact, it was one of the big ahas we had was more people fall into the caregiver category than any other.
Wow. Because
so many people, empathy, family is so important, and fun. And these are people that really do. They're people that are great to have on your team because they make sure that things are getting smoothed out and worked out. They make sure you've got work-life balance. They're the ones that lighten the mood with a little quick bit of joke. They keep the workplace light and fun and engaging. So as you're building great teams, and this is where builders, come in, they'll look to have a caregiver somewhere on the team to make sure everything coalesces. Interesting, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I got a question on that. But you want to tell us the 5th one?
Yeah, the 4th one, actually, we're reward-driven. Now, these are people driven by money, prestige, recognition. We find a definite preponderance of people in younger age groups that are more reward-driven. There's the old saying that money doesn't drive you unless you don't have any money. And that's why a lot of younger people are reward-driven. Now, it doesn't mean that's exclusive of people who are in the older generation. It's my number 2 driver is reward-driven. And, my growing up years, we didn't have any money. And so I scraped my way through college. And so now money to me means security. It means freedom. And so a lot of times, somebody who's maybe a builder or a caregiver will look at somebody who's reward-driven and say, oh, they're hedonistic, they're materialistic, it's all about greed for them. And it may not be. And what we find is with different identities, they bring different things to the team. A team without somebody who's reward-driven won't be anywhere near as competitive. These folks want to win awards. They want to win the next big deal. They're driven in a way that is very tangible. And when we say, are you intrinsically or extrinsically driven, These folks want to win those extrinsic rewards. Their boss's opinion matters a lot. The size of their office, the kind of the recognition they get, those are the reward driven. When I think about somebody who's reward driven, I would think about the character that Will Smith plays from Pursuit of Happiness. Why was he trying to win that prestigious internship at Dean Witter? He wanted to take care of his son. So we have to look at the motives behind why somebody is reward driven. So the last one is the thinkers. Now this is my number one identity. These people are very much driven by creativity. Many times they like to work autonomously, really want to make a big impact in the work they do, really like variety in their work, really driven to learn. And so you find a lot of people in STEM positions that are thinkers, also a lot of creative people in marketing, advertising, etc., writers and musicians. So there's a lot of different types of thinkers with different drives. But these are the creative people. These are the people that are going to come up with your next big idea. So interesting. I'm a thinker. Jester's a caregiver. And so we have strengths, but we also have to understand each other as we work together, that we have to be able to balance. And, if we need a relationship created, we send in the caregiver. If we need the next big idea developed, we send in the thinker. And that's sort of how we've built our partnership.
And I think that's so wonderful. Leads me right to where I want to go, because there are lots of founders, high achievers, and leaders who listen to our broadcast. So if you guys were evaluating a team or your team, or better yet, starting a new business, how would these identities influence the makeup of your team?
Great question. Depending on what business you're in and what team you're developing. But as Adrian said, it would be a mistake to hire everybody just like you. Like you say, you've got these, really reward-driven CEOs and so on, and that's great. But they, the best leaders that we've bumped into, and we were dealing with a great company up in Syracuse, New York, Aspen Dental, that has built almost $1 billion business over the last while. And we love the attitude of their CEO, and he said, I don't want to be the smartest guy in the room. And I remember my dad saying, if I'm the smartest guy in the room, I'm in the wrong room. I want people around me that have complementary, abilities. And so if you've got a really reward-driven CEO, it would be great to have someone next to him that's a caregiver, right? You want to have a builder. You got to build the business out. You want to expand. You want to, develop other leaders. You want to develop your bench. A lot of leaders say, where's our leadership bench? Who are the next great leaders? In your R&D department, you want to have, you want to have some thinkers in there, and achievers that are saying, "Hey, let's try some stuff new. Let's put ourselves under pressure. Give me a problem to solve." So, depending on where you are in your company, you may want the dominant identity in sales. You want to be reward driven. You want reward driven. You want achievers. In the R&D, you want to have some thinkers. In leadership, you want to have some caregivers and some builders. So I think, you take a look and say, what are my needs? What are the identities that are going to fill those positions the best? Because if you had a whole company full of caregivers, it might be a really nice place to go, but I don't know that you'd ever sell anything.
That's a good point. You never will. But speaking of leadership for a second, Chester, is there an optimal mix of talent amongst the leadership teams that you guys have seen that would best serve a high-performance company?
Yeah, I'll take this one. One of the things we found, and it comes back to what Chester was just saying about the mix, and oftentimes we'll find a builder leader like yourself who thinks anybody who is reward-driven is a heartless jerk, is just greedy, and not realizing that that's what drives these people. That's what motivates them. That's what makes them happy, is winning deals, making money, and they don't utilize that. And so they look upon these people, and we've worked with so many sales organizations that have a CEO above them who thinks that these guys are selfish, just looking out for themselves, and they're not. This is what drives them and motivates them. So in a leadership team, what we found is the best mix is where a senior leader probably would have more of the builder within them. They are looking to develop others. They're really about creating this wonderful environment, but they realize the strengths of others. They will have a caregiver near them, In many cases, I don't mean to say this is always the case, but in many cases, the caregiver might be, for instance, the head of HR. Or it might be somebody who is more empathetic to the human needs of our people. And are we meeting those needs? They will have people who are thinkers, who are leading the marketing efforts, who are leading the R&D efforts. The reward-driven people who will be heading up divisions or especially sales groups. And they will have achievers who are leading the big projects, who are leading the big initiatives in their organizations. What we find is this mix. I sat down with the CEO of one of America's biggest companies recently when we were just creating this, and huge tire manufacturer. And as he started kind of thinking about it, he went, I'm going to go back to my team and figure out, do we have all the people? Do we have a heart and soul on my team? Do we have somebody who's really thinking and pushing us? He said, because if we don't have each of these, we're not going to be as successful as we should be.
I love it. It's just so important.
Yeah. Well, and Mo, it's really interesting to me. Sometimes those roles reverse a little bit at the top, right? So I've always thought, look, if somewhere in the company you need to have a visionary, right? The why of what we do, not just what and how, but the why. But then you need somebody that can execute on that, right? Take the vision and monetize it. Take the vision and bring it to life and build it. Well, if your top guy is a visionary, your second guy needs to be, right, that one that can monetize it. But then when your mechanic or the guy that's really good about the mechanics of it, if he becomes the leader, you better have a caregiver right there with him or a visionary, right? Because if all you're worried about is the bottom line in the spreadsheet, you're going to lose your way as far as that emotional engagement that's so important at work. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So you can have different leaders at the top with different identities. But boy, to me, it's so important to have that complementary leader that maybe is your number two guy, or, like Adrian says, you got a guy who's really an achiever, reward driven. Well, there better be a caregiver in there that makes sure that leader understands the why of work, and vice versa. So it really is an interesting dynamic as we dug into it. What makes for great organizations? All these identities make for great organizations. But again, are they in the right place with the right motivation, with the right passion?
And that's why I really appreciate the work that you guys do, Chester. But here's something that comes up a lot. It's one thing if you're like our kids, you're in your 20s, you can get lost in your 20s. You have permission to get lost in your 20s. But it's a whole different story if you're 40 and 50, right? It becomes a little bit more disturbing. And unfortunately, there's way too many things out there that say, hey, follow your passion and you'll make $1 million and all. I don't ever put you guys obviously in that category, but what's your best advice to these 40s and 50s who have now come to grips that maybe this is the best path for me?
Well, I'll jump in on this one. One of the problems we hear, we talked to so many of these people. They're mid-career. We interviewed one woman who was she was a creative director on Madison Avenue. She was making well over $300,000 a year. For many people listening, they would say, "Oh, she's won the lottery." I mean, what could not be great about that? And yet she was miserable. And what we found in many of these instances, as we talked with people, that they didn't need to make a complete job switch. They didn't need to, quit their jobs and open up a fruit stand at the end of their driveway. What they needed to do was to work with their managers to sculpt their jobs. By the time you're mid-career, and if you're good at what you do, then you typically are able to work with your manager a little bit. We call it add, alter, and transfer. Are there some elements of your work that you could transfer out that are frustrating to you? Are there elements that you can alter somewhat to change them, to make them a little bit more fulfilling to you? And are there some elements that you can add to your work? We're not asking you to add 20 new hours of work a year, or a week. But what we're asking is, are there some things that you could add with this other transfer and alter you're doing that would be more fulfilling? And we call it job sculpting. And what we found is the happiest people we interviewed, in many cases, didn't find their bliss down a new path. They found their happiness on the path they were already on, and they just made these small changes. In one case, it was a fellow that we interviewed who loved to public speak, and it wasn't part of his job, so he talked his company into letting him go into colleges to make career planning presentations. It was just a small little sculpt, but it made him so much happier. And what we're saying is, it's not Pollyanna, you can't change everything, but can you do little things that will make you more fulfilled?
And then for the 20-something-year-old, it's okay to get lost, right? It's okay to get to go out and experiment with different things?
Oh, I don't think there's any question. I mean, that's where you kind of, find what you're good at and find out what really does excite you. That's why it's so rare, I think, that kids graduate in 4 years. You should take an extra year or take a year sabbatical, go see the world, get involved in a couple of startups, build a bit of a resume with the big organization. Have lots of different experiences. I agree with you on that. I encourage young people more than anything, travel. Go to Europe, go to South America, go to Asia. Appreciate other cultures and other ways of thinking. Learn a second language. Enrich your life. And then along that journey, you're going to come across things that really get you excited. And it may be huge on the social responsibility side. You may decide, clean water is what you're passionate about. And you can say, you know what? I just love creating new businesses. I'm a lunatic when it comes to just finding an idea and knowing how to monetize it. So absolutely, early in your career, have a lot of different experiences. But more than anything, when you're early, and this is some advice that I wish had been given to me, is become a student of leadership. So as you work in these different jobs, look at your boss and how they manage. Look at the supervisors and how they lead. Look at different leaders in successful organizations and pick up on what they do really well and what makes them successful. But not only that, what makes the people underneath them successful. And I think when you start to be a student of leadership, you really start to understand that making sure that people's motivations are right, that your mission and vision and values are right, and that's where we think this assessment tool is so valuable. Is there a passion? Is there the right motivation? Have you got the right people in the right places? Become a student of leadership early in your career, and I think it pays big dividends later on.
That may be one of the most important points that we'll make today, because when you look at this generation, if they can figure this thing out, if they can figure this leadership thing out, I think a lot of the world's problems will be addressed. Just a couple more questions for you guys. I know we're tight on time here, but you guys make a really important point when you say that it's possible to be held hostage by focusing on your strength. And obviously there's no shortage of controversy on this, but I totally agree with you. Tell me why most of us get held hostage by our strength.
Well, one of the problems with this, and I'll come to another family example here. My son, who's now a college freshman, when he was in high school, he was the soccer goalie on the varsity team. He was strong, he was fearless, he was the best in school at stopping the ball. But as his college or his high school career progressed, he got more and more miserable between the posts. He didn't enjoy it. He wanted to get out and run around and get to score, but he got stuck in there because that's what he was good at. Well, unfortunately, that's what happens in our jobs. We tend to join the corporate world, and somebody decides that Julie is good at details, so she gets stuck behind the scenes when she'd really love to work with clients and be more creative and come up with great ways to serve the clients, or maybe Aaron is good at math, and so he becomes an engineer, and yet ends up sort of doing something that's not rewarding to him. And what we find is that we can't all be what we want to be professionally, with no concept of whether we're good at it or not. I mean, those things that we like to do but we're not good at are hobbies. Well, we're not talking about that. Chester and I, as much as we love hockey, we will never play in the NHL. Well, so for yourself. Well, yeah.
You never know.
But, what we find is, and so it happens in so many of our lives where we can become hostages to what we're good at, and don't consider, too, marrying that with what we love to do, what we like to do, and what drives our passion at work. That's where that magic happens, is when we can do a little bit more of what we love to do and a little less of what frustrates us.
And that's so important. And so look at it from a hiring perspective for a moment. You're the HR, again, of a high-performance company. You're the director of HR. You're a high-growth company. Talent is your foremost priority. How do you begin to sculpt the roles that you're hiring for? Because a lot of times we hear we're just going to hire for talent because it's so short out there.
Yeah, well, this again is where we think this assessment tool could be really helpful. Have people take the assessment as they come in to be hired. And what we tell people, particularly when they're taking the assessment, is be brutally honest. Don't answer the question like you think you should, what other people think you should, or what you were, or what you'd like to be. What is it right now? And I think that you can start to have conversations around, say, hey, these are your big motivators. Here's what this role will entail. There's a good fit, or not. I think the more information you can get on people as they come in, certainly references are really important, past experience, past success, and so on. But a lot of times you're hiring young people, they don't have a long resume. Maybe they're only a few years out of school and haven't had that much work experience. Those are the ones that have the most upside, right? So if you can start to identify what they're passionate about at that point in their career, I think you can better guide them and see where their fit in your organization is going to be. The more,
right.
Because it's so interesting. You have these interviews, and of course, when people are interviewing for the job, they want the job.
Yeah.
Right? They're going to give you the answers they hope that you like, whether it's 100% true or not. But if you've got some profiles, if you've got some assessments, it allows you to dive a little deeper into the conversation and find out really what you're saying.
Well, and the point, too, is that you can sculpt the position. As a manager, I know what motivates you. And I understand that, look, you're driven by creativity and variety in your job. Just as an example, I know that you're a thinker. And all of a sudden, I can start to give you more challenging assignments that will stretch your creativity. It will allow you to have a little bit more variety and to learn in your position. I go back to the woman who was a creative director who was so frustrated. One of the problems was she was driven by creativity and learning, but she was a creative director and she had one account, a big technology client that was very pressure-packed. Even though they paid her well, money wasn't a motivator for her. She was driven by doing different things and learning, and she wasn't able to with one technology client where she just had to do the same thing over and over again. And so as a manager, if I know what motivates you, I can at least give you those more satisfying assignments. You still have to take out the trash. You still have to do, I'm not saying you're a completely sculpted job, but you're able to do a few little things that will enhance. What we find is it enhances employee retention and commitment levels if you're able to care about my career. Because when I know you care about me, I'm then going to care about what you want me to care about.
Absolutely. So two quick things here. From a management's perspective, Adrian, what do great managers do? Knowing what you've just shared with us, what do great managers do?
Well, one of the things that we found with the best managers is that they're very clear in their goal setting. They communicate very openly with their people. They build trusting relationships. And how do they do it is a simple idea we call they partner with their talent. They don't consider their people as employees. They consider them as partners in the business who bring talent to the business. It's funny, we had a CEO once when we shared that concept who got about, a foot away from my face and screamed, "My people are not my partners, they are my employees." The idea is, do you think anybody ever gave them their best ideas or no, they gave just enough to survive in that environment. And so what we find is that great leaders partner with the people. They bring their best ideas out and they scope their job. They listen to what could motivate them. And again, they can't provide everything they're looking for, but they're looking for one or two things each 6 months, each year that they can do to get people a little closer to their goals. Whatever they want to do in their careers, they realize, hey, you may leave me one day, but while you're here, I want you to give me 100% every day, and we're going to create a partnership. So I'm going to worry about your career, and you're going to worry about what I want you to worry about, and we're both going to form this partnership that it's going to be beneficial for both sides.
Yeah, and on another point, I was actually in that meeting with Adrian, and when that happens for me, you back away slowly. That's the best advice you can get. Back away slowly. The other thing great leaders do, and this is from a lot of our work, and you'll love this, Mo, but great leaders cheer for their people. And what I mean by that is great organizations and high-performance organizations, successful organizations, they find the time to celebrate success. And this is part of, being a builder. It's part of achievers. It's kind of the secret sauce that runs through. I mean, caregivers are good at giving recognition and so on. And it's so interesting. All the work we did with the Care Principle, which is the first book that you discovered, where you discovered our work, is that, in great organizations, when somebody succeeds, there's not a lot of jealousy, but there's a lot of celebration.
Yeah.
And it's so funny. We look at all the data and how it builds confidence, it retains people, it gets them excited and energized. To Adrian's point, they'll give you their good ideas. But it's so funny when we talk to leaders and we say, so what prevents you from celebrating more of your people's success? The number one answer is, I don't have enough time. Right? Time. So we always laugh and we say, okay, so let me get this straight. So Mo's doing a great job for you, right? And he's knocking it out of the park. And you're just finding it tough to find the time to sit him down or put him in front of the group or whatever it is you do. Write him a note and say thank you. Say, Mo screws up. How much time you got now? You know what I mean? I mean, you make time for mistakes all day. So, great leaders we find are constantly looking for things to improve. What's going on, but they're really quick to see what's going right as well, and they don't hesitate to celebrate.
Absolutely. So let's end with this. I heard Phil Knight of Nike a couple years ago give a commencement address at Stanford, and he looked at this graduating class, obviously really bright people, and he says, your goal should not be to seek a job or even a career, but to seek a calling. Does that kind of sum up our message today?
I think it does. I think that's great. Adrian, did you write that down?
Yeah, it's funny. I was just writing that. That's good.
we're going to use that because we think there's a hierarchy. Adrian and I talked about this a lot. There's a job, there's a career, but then there's a calling, and that's what we love about putting your passions to work. If it's your calling, if you believe what you do matters, and you're making a difference every day. And I always add to that, when you make a difference, somebody notices it and celebrates it. That's a calling. That's a great, who wouldn't want to work in a place like that, right? And when you get that calling, you overcome obstacles. You find ways. You network. You get the job done. You show up every day, energized at work. I love that. You find a calling. And here's what we love most is, we're not child psychologists, we're not, marriage counselors, but we do know, and a lot of studies have proved this out, that when you are happy and engaged at work, you are 150% more likely to be happy and engaged in your personal life. Particularly Americans, we live to work. And when work is miserable, our home life is miserable. When work is great, home life tends to be great. And that's one of the things we love about our work is the more great places to work with people that are passionate, with the right motivations and have their calling, the more likely to be happy at home. And that's a great ripple effect.
Well, I know you guys are pursuing your calling. I know you're happy, and I want others to catch the bug. So where can they go find out more about Carrots and about everything that we're doing, specifically the what motivates them?
Go to thecultureworks.com. That's thecultureworks.com, and you'll find out all about our new book, What Motivates Me. And as Chester said, we're excited not only for how this can impact your business life, but also your personal lives as well. So, and we answer every email that comes in. So, please let us know what you think about our work and what we can do to help you as all your listeners go forward on their journeys.
So obviously that was Adrian, and that is Chester, and there you have it. Gentlemen, thank you.
Thanks for having us on, Mo. This was great fun. And by the way, look for us on LinkedIn. We publish lots of articles, and there's some great help in there. So you call us anytime. This was a lot of fun, Mo. Good job.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Mo. Appreciate it.